para Scotia de Brasil con su proyecto ¿Qué es lo que los padres brasileños realmente esperan del colegio?
Brazil has today over 35 million children and teenagers trapped in failing unaccountable public schools. That means 8 in every 10 Brazilian students. And despite the growing public investment in the last decades, at the end of high school, only 30% of public school students can read at grade level, and only 5% of them understand what 5% means. And if you think this can't get any worse, let me tell you something. These are numbers from before the pandemic. Before, millions of public school students were left without any teaching whatsoever for nearly 2 years. Unfortunately, these children's parents are not free to use their education dollars at the school of their choice. They are trapped by their zip code, and they are trapped by poverty. And that is why, about 2 years ago, we decided to create our organization, Livre para Escolher, or Libre para Elegir. And our work has never been so urgent. The newly elected socialist government has brought back the very same people who were in power for almost 2 decades and who are directly responsible for this education tragedy. The same group who used Brazilian taxpayers' money to help finance dictatorships in Latin American countries. And yet, I keep hearing people saying, Ana Maria, one thing is not depending on the government to run sewage companies or to mail letters, but you see, education is a different thing. Their condescending argument is that since the majority of Brazilian parents are poor and haven't had much formal education, they're simply unable to make education decisions for their own children. So, in order to fight for these parents' dignity and the right to choose, with the generous support of Atlas Network, we have conducted a nationally representative survey comparing low and middle-income parents' preferences and expectations for the education of their children. And our survey found that low-income parents have basically the same education expectations as middle-income parents. So, in order to start changing this overall consensus that education choice is not viable in Brazil and that more government interference is the way to go, we need to get information out to people. So we are going to broadcast the findings of our survey, and with the additional funding of this prize, we'll be able to hire a public relations team so that we not only reach a larger audience, but also target mainstream media outlets, which will also help us with our consultancy work with lawmakers. And we will know we'll have reached success when we start getting mentions from these media outlets and when lawmakers start using data from our survey to support changing legislation. And perhaps most importantly, when we can replicate our survey in other Latin American countries. As far as we know, we are the only Brazilian NGO actively and consistently working for education choice and family empowerment. And we have had some important wins. For example, last year, with the support of Atlas Network, we helped approve a project at the Federal House of Representatives in Brasilia to allow for homeschooling practice. And the project is now being debated at the Senate. But there's still a lot to be done, and the truth is, we don't have much time. We have seen it happen. An education system which is not accountable to the families brings tragic consequences for the children and is a threat for a free society. So here is our call to action. Help us fight for the children who are trapped by poverty in failing government schools. Help us fight for their parents' dignity. They must be free to choose.
The amount you're asking me now, but to continue the project, do you have any expectations on how much would you need to continue the project for next year, or is only research for 1 year, this investigation you are planning to?
This actual project we're talking about,
Yes.
we are already conducting with an Atlas Network grant. What we need is this additional funding to hire the public relations team so that we can make it more visible and we can start. We have the idea is to plan strategically so that it is replicated in other Latin American countries. But the project, the research is done, we already have the results. Now we have to broadcast these results and, if possible, replicate the survey in other Latin American countries, and we would like to focus on our strategic planning on this direction.
How many parents have you interviewed?
1,800.
Okay. And how do you plan to oppose the attacks on your credibility that probably the mainstream and the unions, etc., will launch against your project?
That's why it's so important that we can reach mainstream media outlets, because if we stay within our bubble, it's comfortable and we don't reach these other people who will only believe if they hear from traditional media outlets. So we need to get there, you see. So and a public relations team will help us exactly with that, to burst this bubble and reach the people who will need to have their support to start changing this idea, this consensus that poor people don't care, poor people are not ambitious about the education of their children, and we have seen it's not true, and we want to be seen also as the experts in this area. Like I said, there is no other organization working in this direction. All they say is we need more money to support public school, and when we say, well, but vouchers and school choice, and the reply is always this: you cannot give school choice to parents who won't know what to do, they're not ambitious, they don't care. And it's not true. Yes.
Okay, nice project. Thank you for Atlas sent to invitation to hear from you and the other projects. I would like to know what would be the full budget on your initiative.
Since the beginning, about now, the whole project is around 40,000 with the research and other things. The $15,000 would be like $8,000 for the team, the public relations team, and then $5,000 for media boosting and marketing, and $2,000 to start our strategic planning. That's the extra funding.
I have the feeling that this awareness is delivered in a big part of the society, and on the other hand, I feel that the budget is not impressive for the kind of initiative that you're going to run. So I would like to know, how do you think that you can really change the subject, and not only by the awareness of the society, that I think in a way, at least in Uruguay and what I can read in foreign press, we are aware of the problem. But the problem is still there, and there are a lot of things to do.
Yeah, that's a first step. We are aware that this is not going to solve the problem, but like I heard today in the morning, I think it was Julio who was saying that we have to start working to change ideas, right? What sounds really not possible today, if we keep working on it, a couple of years from now, we'll have something to be seen, something to show that this is the way to go. And if we I understand your point. It's not going to be enough. It's just a first step. We're aware, totally aware of that. But it's a first step that must be taken. So,
Thank you very much, Ana Maria. With that, the time is up.
thank you.
Muchas gracias, Ana María.